بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحاب المحتدين والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. So here we are on the day of Ashura, a truly blessed day in our history and history of mankind as a whole, history of prophethood. Many great events took place on that day, and of course also the events of Karbala took place on the 10th of Muharram, and traditionally Ahlul Sunnah wouldn't make it a point every year to tell in detail all the things that took place, but nevertheless it's important to look at, to take lessons and derive lessons from what took place, and to remember in the context of Ashura as a whole. So what are these lessons that we take from it? Very briefly, and the first thing I would say would be that it's an opportunity to renew our love and our connection to the blessed household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's not something we need to wait to do once a year, or to commemorate once a year, or to think about once a year. Rather, it's something that we live, inshallah, that our whole year and our whole lives we live in that, with that connection, and it's a big part of our faith. It's a big part of our connection to Allah and His Messenger. The Prophet says that love Allah for the blessings that He bestows upon you, and love me for the love of Allah, and love my family and my household for my love. So if you love, your love for Allah dictates that you love the Prophet ﷺ, love for the Prophet ﷺ dictates that you love those who He loved, and He loved those who were closest to Him, His blessed family. So that's a big part of our faith and part of our connection, it's recognizing that there's a khususiyya, there's unique things that have been given by Allah. Some He chose for prophethood, some He chose to be from the family of the Prophet ﷺ, some He chose to be amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. We need to recognize that, and there are people within the folds of Islam who failed to recognize that. Some for seemingly religious reasons, namely the Khawarij, who couldn't accept that anyone had any, everyone was equal in a sense, and as they saw it, that why is they didn't see any superiority, any distinction between anyone really, whether they were companions or the family or the Prophet ﷺ. And this is really the disease of Iblis, of the devil, who couldn't recognize that Allah had bestowed something upon Adam. He questioned and he debated and refused to accept that. And other people reject this unique these unique things that Allah gives, not from religious, quote unquote religious reasons, but for worldly reasons, that they're more interested in. They're not interested in that. They're interested in their worldly gains and their power and the status and so on. And these are the people that that's the motive really for the killing of Imam Hussein, was worldly motives. That he's a threat to our hegemony, he's a threat to our power. So just let's take him out of the picture, essentially. So love for the family is the first thing, that we renew that connection, we renew that love for them. We look at them with that veneration, with that love and that honor. But this love has an important fruit, which is following. That if you claim to love someone, then follow them. If we claim to love the Prophet ﷺ, we follow in his footsteps. If we claim to love the Ahlul Bayt, that should have, the proof of that is in the following of them and emulating them. So we need to look at their lives, look at the lives of those closest to the Prophet ﷺ. So look at how Sayyidina Ali supported the Prophet ﷺ from before. As a child, he was always already praying with the Prophet and supporting the Prophet and believing in the Prophet. He was the one that stood up and gave support to the Prophet ﷺ when his own clan refused to do so. And then at every point we find him, there at the Prophet's side, supporting him, sleeping in his bed on the night of the Hijrah, prepared to sacrifice himself, and staying on in Mecca to return the property that had been entrusted to the Prophet by Quraysh. Sayyidina Ali was left behind to give everything back to its rightful owner, and so on and so on. At every juncture, and every difficult point, and every expedition, and every battle, Sayyidina Ali is there. And of course, Sayyidah Fatima, alayha salam wa ridwan, she is the beloved daughter of the Prophet ﷺ. She is, along with her sisters, She is there. She's the youngest. She's the one removing the filth from his back when it's thrown upon him when he's praying. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She's the one that supporting him, filling that void when his beloved mother, his beloved wife, and her mother, Sayyidah Khadija, is lost. And she's there, supporting him. And look at the marriage of Sayyidina Ali and Fatima. And look at the simplicity and the modesty and the humility. And look at all the qualities that they had. And look at the blessed fruits that came from that marriage. Sayyidina al-Hasan and Hussein, Sayyidina Zainab, and so on and so on. All the blessed, the children that were born from that marriage. Look at the examples of al-Hasan and Hussein. Look at their courage and their generosity and all the qualities they embodied in their lives. And these are the ones that played on the Prophet's lap and sat on the Prophet's lap and climbed on his back, and that he loved them more than anything else. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. These are the youth, the masters of the youth of paradise. But what do we know from their example and from their qualities and from their character? How they stood for justice. How Sayyidina Hussein deliberately left the haram of Mecca, left in a sense the relative safety of Mecca, in order that the blood would not be spilt in the haram, that fitna would not come into the haram, and that the sanctity of the haram would be maintained. And he was the one that when death was facing him, he said, it's just that all they want is me. He told everyone to leave him. He didn't want blood to be spilt. Radiallahu anhum. This is the courage of Sayyidina Hussein. Of course, they stayed with him and they supported him. And if we look at Sayyidina Hasan as well, he was no less courageous. He resigned the Khilafah, he resigned the outward political leadership to Muawiyah, and someone might think, well, that's just a cowardly thing to do. Why didn't he just stand up for his rights? And no, that was the utmost embodiment of courage. So courage is not just necessarily what outwardly seems as the courage. One of the greatest forms of courage is confronting your own self, and your own wrongs and your own desires, and being courageous in that sense. But Sayyidina Hasan was just as courageous. He made that step, to save bloodshed. Radiallahu anhu. And then we go on, look at the example of those who came after him. Sayyidina Ali, Zayn al-Abidin, was the only male survivor of Karbala, the son of Imam Hussein. He lives on. He goes back to Medina. How does he live the rest of his life? Does he start any? Does he still sow hatred? Does he try and get revenge? No, he lives his life serving the community, teaching the deen, preserving the tradition of his forefathers. He teaches us, he passes on the spiritual knowledge of the self, and of purifying the self and traveling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what he left behind. He didn't cause division in the ummah. And likewise, those who came after him, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and Ja'far al-Sadiq, and so on and so on. And from his progeny he's the only, the line of Imam Hussein survives through him, and he's the one that, the line lives on. And the great Imams that went to different places, they went to Hadramaut and spread the Islam to Southeast Asia. This is all from the blessings of Imam Ali Zayn al-Abidin. And if we look at the Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad, they all people that loved the Ahl al-Bayt and followed in their footsteps, and had that immense love and loyalty to them. So that's the second thing, is following. The love is not just a claim that we make; it has a reality, has a manifestation, which is the following of them and embodying their ways and what they taught. And the third thing really is what Karbala teaches us and informs us is the nature of the human soul. If you look at things from the perspective of what Allah tells us, that we have been entrusted, we've been given this soul, and we've been told to strive to purify it, and success is based upon that. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, that the one who purifies it has succeeded. So if we are, success that is the definition of success in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we see at Karbala tells us how low people can stoop when they neglect the souls. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَاهَا, those who neglect their souls are the ones that fail. That leads them to all worse than animals. They can do actions which are just as shocking as what you can see. It leads them to spill the blood of the purest blood on the face of the earth, just for the sake of some power, some dominance, some wealth, some short-term goals. That's how bad the human nafs can get if it's not purified. That's why it's so important follow in the footsteps of these great Imams, that they preserve these teachings. So that is the third lesson, is to it's a lesson to us to how bad how low people can stoop when they neglect this tazkiyah and this tarbiyah. And it's a lesson to us not to neglect our souls, to struggle against our own vices and our own deficiencies and our own the darkness that's in our souls, and spend our lives in that jihad, so that we can follow in the footsteps of the likes of Imam Hussein, Imam Hassan, and all the companions and all the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So may Allah shall bless us on this day and allow us to have that courage and have that determination to travel the path, and Allah reward all those who sacrifice their lives for the sake of Allah on the day of Karbala and before and after. Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.